the Banyule Nillumbik Youth Services Network has a few different elements, but all of them are just about connecting youth workers across our area.
A number of service providers from different levels. So it brings in managers, it brings in on-ground practitioners, it brings in federal and state government representatives as well as local. It brings in the not-for-profit sector and the NGOs. So in that way, it is quite unique. It was the cooperation between the Nillumbik Youth Service and the Banyule Youth Services to increase the advocacy and the range of services for young people. And one of the dilemmas was that when the old Heidelberg Council and Eltham Shire merged, Diamond Valley Shire was taken up in that, and there was a core of services, providers and young people who were used to using either Eltham or Heidelberg and were a little, I suppose, disorientated when the new councils were established. And this brought Banyule and Nillumbik councils together as they looked at this sort of common territory that had once been Diamond Valley, and they looked at how they could resolve some of those issues.
I think one of the highlights has been the continuing challenges that we're prepared to unpack and try to find ways to work through. And it could be easy when there aren't resources to just say, look, it's all too hard. But I think some of the recent projects show that when you really put the effort in and you get together as a network of youth agencies, that you can find ways, one way or another, you find a way to put together the best sort of response you can within the available resources and the time and the other constraints. So for me, the highlights have been the way in which organisations have worked together to find, really good solutions where possible, and where there aren't solutions, to keep the fight.
Nillumbik Youth Services teamed up with Banyule Youth Services and started an induction program for youth workers. They find out about who's there, who's around, what services are around, who they can refer their young people into, and lots of them didn't even know those services existed.
We want Banyule Nillumbik, our area, to be really connected, because when our youth workers and their managers are really connected, we actually get better outcomes for young people.
We kind of discovered that a lot of people were not connected to mainstream schooling. So they would be drifting off and maybe not attending school, or a little bit here and there. So we kind of thought that there needs to be something in the region that would address those issues.
There was a committee consultation run by the state government, and we decided to take a representation to that committee consultation. And we were given an audience with a representative from the Department of Education and the Minister's office. It was very much a collaboration. I mean, there was probably 12 months of consultation between the department and the Youth Services Network.
The Pavilion School is a school that provides education to a lot of students who would not otherwise get it from the mainstream school system. They've structured the school a very different way to provide a lot of support to kids who may need different support that they weren't receiving. The Pavilion, they create a very positive environment for learning, and I think that I associated that positive environment now with learning, and I can really enjoy the different things that I study.
I was working at Berry Street in Eltham in around about 2007, and I was a member of the Banyule exec, and I was approached by a student from Nillumbik Youth Services who wanted to do a project on youth homelessness. So after an initial conversation with Sarah, I suggested that we look at the number of young people who were couch surfing in Nillumbik and Banyule. There was a strong impetus to continue the work because it was such a major piece of work. We delivered the reports to the Department of Human Services, to anyone that would listen to us, but really it was only the Banyule Council that continued, or the two councils that continued to support us.
Time Out built on the research that came out of the Wearing Out Your Welcome report. And that report really highlighted that there was a lot of kind of hidden homelessness amongst young people, particularly young people that were still engaged at school. And it really also showed that there was a big impact on school engagement when young people were experiencing homelessness. And homelessness services really reflected that by the time young people got to them, that family relationships had really disintegrated quite significantly, but had things been caught a lot earlier, that re-engagement with family was probably quite doable. So out of that, the Banyule Nillumbik Youth Services Executive really wanted to do some work around that early intervention when young people were just first having those experiences of couch surfing. So they came up with a model that looked at working with schools, young people, families that young people were couch surfing with, or the host families, informal host families, and family of origin.
Whilst there was this strategic sort of stuff happening, this advocacy work happening, there wasn't any local level voice. And so therefore those gatherings now are really pivotal for us that are really on the ground, that are seeing the day-to-day issues, that know where the gaps are for young people, that we can then have that voice and that conversation around, well, what can we do about it, you know, and who needs to know about this, and how do we do this advocacy work, and then it can be pushed up at a higher level.
So the Youth Workers Forums are a really fantastic way to bring together youth workers from across our area, and also youth workers further afield who might not be situated in our area but support young people in our area. And we do some amazing networking in a fairly informal sense to build relationships between our workers, so we can be, I guess, a really cohesive group of youth workers across two municipalities, being Banyule and Nillumbik.
People put their hand up to do a whole range of issues, like people took on the promotion, people took on the advocacy, people took on networking with people who understood how to push the right buttons.
Started to see that there was a real need for mental health for young people in this area, and the Nillumbik Council really led the process and pulled together all of the services for 4 local government areas, for Banyule, Nillumbik, Whittlesea and Darebin, and all the youth services, and set up a meeting. And for about a year, those services met nearly monthly, officially launched in June 2016. So we've been accepting referrals and seeing young people since April of 2016. The establishment of the North East Partnership Group to get the headspace off the ground was a key achievement.
I think the vision for the future is to continue to tackle those really difficult issues and to not let them go, and to maintain the pressure wherever we can and however we can. And I think part of that will be well supported by the particular role that both Banyule Council and Nillumbik Council play in this network. And in reflecting over the last number of years, decades, The critical strength underpinning a lot of the work of the network has been that involvement from the two councils. The collaboration between the two councils, but also their underpinning of the administration and direction and coordination of the network.